crime.
Part of me almost doesn't even want to talk about this as a topic, especially because we already did a whole bunch of stuff on Epstein. But the reality is we live in a state in which you have Democrat lawmakers and appointees of Democrats on various commissions and boards who have a whole lot of power and a whole lot of fringe views. The average Democrat does not want to protect child sex predators. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you were to judge them by their leadership, it might be a little bit different. But the average person is obviously not on board this far left-wing position of wanting to go easy on child sex predators. And yet, we've got an exclusive story up at seattlered.com about Washington's Sentencing Guidelines Commission. Sentencing as in jail sentencing. They just voted to recommend lighter sentencing options for adults caught in sex crime sting operations, these net nanny cases, where adults, they're almost always men, though not always, take active steps to meet with people they think are children for sex. It was a 7-2 vote to urge lawmakers in Olympia to create alternatives to incarceration for so-called offenses with, and this is their language, no identifiable victim. Now, that category includes internet sting operations, these net nanny cases, where someone is communicating with either someone they think is a child or think is a parent or an adult of a child, offering that child up for sex. But it turns out these are actually undercover detectives. Now, this move, this decision by this commission is part of a strategic goal to destigmatize child sex perverts as part of their far left criminal justice reforms. We've already seen this happening at the state level, right? Releasing sexually violent predators into your communities, including when it's going to be near children. We've already seen this. This is a policy choice by Democrats, and it's one that could determine whether or not a pervert who already tried to meet a child for sex ends up facing any meaningful consequence whatsoever. Because their logic is that net nanny sting offenders are apparently, quote unquote, lower risk than someone who is a hands-on abuser. And that the state should essentially look at these people and say, you know what, instead of putting you in jail, we should focus on treatment. Now, this is this exact same board, the same commission that previously pushed treatment instead of jail for folks caught with child pornography. This is the same commission that wanted to eliminate the requirement of public notice to communities before putting some facility for sexually violent predators in a community. And I went back and I watched this in insufferably boring meeting because I think it's important to understand where these people are coming from. And someone who was asked to testify or present is a guy named Brad Merrihew. He is a Washington Sex Offender Policy Board chair member or chairman. And he downplayed the net nanny stings and the people who are caught in them, saying that they don't involve an identifiable victim, that, quote, most of those are attempted crimes or communication with a minor for an immoral purpose with a victim who the person believes to be a minor when in fact they're a detective, as if that makes it any better. Like, no, they believe it's a kid. And then he basically tried to, I think, manipulate people in this conversation into accepting the fact that these are just naive young men, many of whom are autistic, he said. And he gave an example. He goes, you know, there was this one case of someone who is an illegal immigrant and didn't know the laws and was coerced into it. Like, okay, stop. Just stop. And it's important to understand, because I didn't know who this guy was. I had seen him in that other, because we've covered his other board before. I've seen him before. I didn't know who he was other than being on this board. So I looked him up. Turns out he has a private practice law firm. You know who he represents?
Who?
Juveniles and adults accused of sexual misconduct.
Oh.
He said his clients are, quote, often on the autism spectrum. They are with significant cognitive issues. I've had a couple who are schizophrenic in the last few years. These are young men who have very little experience in the world, very little experience with the opposite sex. He said some of the people who get caught up in these things are, quote unquote, incels. He said in the net nanny cases, these individuals, as the government concedes, don't go looking for minors. They go looking for adults. That is the most intentionally dishonest statement that you will probably hear from folks on the fringe of this issue. They will tell you that these people essentially just get caught up in these net nannies things, that they go to adult dating sites and then they get caught into trying to hook up with a child for sex, which is a disingenuous statement because they're going to the adult sites to connect with children. Do you know what doesn't exist? Children dating sites. They don't exist. So this whole, well, they're going to adult sites, not children. Yeah, because children sites, so they go to Craigslist and Backpage and all those other ones. They're doing that with the intent of connecting with kids. And we've covered some of these stories before, in which it's clear as day what they're doing and who they're going after. But he continued, they go to adult sites and often want to pursue sexual contact with, as I say, with an adult. When they're confronted with the fact that, the person says, no, I'm 15, I'm 13, whatever it is that the person says that they are, then there's a process whereby the detective convinces the person that they should come and meet with them and not to worry about it. Again, he says that that's not a big deal. Something tells me that if you're on a dating site, and let's say you were under the mistaken impression that a child is actually an adult and you message them, and then you eventually, oh, hey, by the way, how old are you? Oh, I'm 12. Under his logic, he then says, and then at that point, it's the detective who convinces you to do the wrong thing and connect with it. Wait, what? Shouldn't your immediate response is like to block that person or to say, okay, I'm out, and then burn your phone so you don't get accused of something? This is absurd. Now, someone who's not allowed to vote on this commission but is a part of the commission, Lauren Davis, the Democrat state representative from Shoreline, she's going to be on the show at 5:30 to talk about this. But she has been really strong on this issue, pushing back, and she corrected the record almost immediately. And you can tell, I've talked to her long enough where I can tell, although I will say she doesn't hide this very well, her annoyed voice. You can tell when she's all like, okay, I know what you're doing. I don't appreciate it. You're trying to take advantage of us, and I'm not going to allow it. And she said, I want to make sure that everybody's clear that these are cases where a person has taken a substantial step to have sex with a child. That is the totality of these cases. And she got into a lot of the true data that's there. And she said, no, don't stop pretending that this is, someone who's getting taken advantage of. These are people who have, in many cases, they actually have already criminal histories involving sex with children. It's disturbing. And what's more disturbing is that this is part of a pattern from Democrats. We talked to you back in March about Senator Lisa Wellman, the Democrat from Mercer Island. She sponsored 2 bills with the intent of essentially getting to the same end goal here, which is to go easier on child sex predators who are caught in net nanny stings, which she also pretends, but there's no victim. There's technically no victim. It's a horrible argument. And then she tried to change the makeup of the board that oversees and allows for net nanny stings because the intent was to get rid of net nanny stings. I don't truly know why they hold these positions. I can only surmise. They don't go on record and ever debate on these because they know that they would come off as awful. But I just want you to remember, there's not just the disturbing aspect to this, but there's the broader hypocrisy of things like this. The Democrats right now are posturing about the importance of releasing the Epstein files, and they frame themselves as some champion of transparency, of accountability on those who prey on minors, and yet their governing record tells a completely different story, and it reveals the truth about what it is that moves them. How many times are they going to show us that their instinct is leniency for child sex predators. Treatment over jail time, reduced registration with, sex offender lists, alternative sentencing, quote unquote, creating obstacles for net nanny stings. What else do they have to do to tell us which side they're on? And do you think mainstream media covers stories like this? No. Did any mainstream media outlet outside of Seattle Red, outside of our exclusive reporting showing the lengths that Lisa Wellman was going in order to push her legislation, did anyone else cover that? Did we miss that?
I don't think we did.
Seattle Times didn't cover it?
No.
Oh, Spokesman Review?
No.
King 5?
No.
It's so weird. No one else covered it. Why is that? Do you think anyone's going to really cover this in TV? I'll give credit to Center Square covers these issues. I don't know if they covered my first one, but they definitely covered this one. They covered it before I did. But none of the networks are going to cover this, any of the local TV. You mean Krem is covering this? No. Caro 7? No. Tacoma News Tribune, Everett Herald? No. Maybe it gets in the Stranger celebrating the move, I guess. But even they're not doing that. As a parent out there who's listening, you should not have to wonder whether or not political leadership here in Washington State sees predators as victims of circumstance. That's not fair to you. It's not fair to your kids. But just know that with every single new vote, with every single new bill, with every single new recommendation to lower penalties or to weaken stings that go after these monsters, the message gets clearer. Protecting children is less of a priority to Washington Democrats than protecting the adults who try to exploit them. And that should be enough for you and every parent you know to never support these people again. Now, because no other media outlet's going to be covering this story, it's on you. I need your help to get eyeballs on it. That's the only way these horrible ideas are stopped, is when we put a ton of pressure. And we've seen victories when people have done that. And so if you care about protecting kids, if you care about locking child sex perverts up, please go to seattlered.com, read this story, share this story. Read it and share it. It's kind of a lengthy story. I get into the weeds a little bit, but that's okay. Maybe it takes you 10 minutes. You just heard it. You don't even have to read it, but you do have to share it, and that takes seconds. The more people who find out about this, the more people get disgusted. The more disgusted people, the more likely they are to say something. And maybe they're that one person who makes that one phone call to that one lawmaker, who's that one Democrat who's maybe on the fence, and spends 1 minute explaining to them why this recommendation is the wrong one, and that's the one vote you needed in order to get them to sink this legislation that will inevitably come up if we say nothing. seattlered.com.